too. It's not arugula, it's just a regular spring mix. Just a spring mix. Throw a couple greens in there, just a little. Switch it up a little bit. It is a tasty sandwich. Thank you, Ashley. Yes, it is. Some mayo, ham, salami, some pickles, some spring mix, egg bun. Great stuff. Thank you also to B-Rat for gifting a sub to Big Melon Lady, or Mel's, as she's known, because I feel awkward saying Big Melon Lady every time. And also I saw Black Cat Paradise continuing the gift sub that they got. Thank you, Black Cat Paradise, as well. For some reason those don't show up as alerts. I don't know why. I have to do it manually. But I did. I don't want to fuck around with anybody. I don't want to scam anybody. So I updated it manually. Thank you for the kind, nice words about my shirt. Thank you, Marina. I'm going purple shirt mode today. Purple shirt mode. Rob not calling women what they want to be called. Just starting off strong with the disrespect, I guess. Nothing beats a logo-free tee. This is a classic American Apparel shirt. Remember American Apparel? I've had this for like 12 years. It's pretty small too, but it kind of works. It kind of works, I feel. I don't think it is still a store. I don't have any more lip mayo. It's gone. No more lip mayo. Okay, so here's the thing, Lodane. Okay? I went to the J-Chat thing, just like you said. I did it. I adjusted all the sizes and everything. I put in the channel. I generated it. I put it into a browser source. And look. I'm going to move the chat over here. This is like the normal chat box. Right, I'll put it here. I'm gonna if you type though, there's no chat showing up. The J chat is supposed to be here, where the normal chat is. It's supposed to be here. There's supposed to be the new chat appearing right there, and it's not appearing. So. The chat was loving Red Scare's VIP. Rob doesn't care about what we all want. Thank you, anonymous commenter. So, anyway, that's what's going on with that. I did try to put the new chat. You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for what you do, and I hope you are enjoying my cursed.
Thank you, Cursed Sam Cider. Thank you very much. I do enjoy it. I was worried that when you were posting these cursed images, that, because I was like, please stop doing this. Please stop. And I was like, is Sam Cider going to think that I'm like seriously upset or something. And I didn't want you to think that, because it is. I do enjoy it, even though it is horrible to look at. It's horrible to look at some of this content, but I do enjoy it though, because I'm a sicko. The Jeb Bush, yeah, is horrific. Absolutely horrific. Ah. You watched the Carl Jha interview? That was really enjoyable, wasn't it? That was really enjoyable. I really liked that conversation with Carl. I'm going to have that up on YouTube, hopefully tonight. Tonight or tomorrow. Really great talk. It was another one of these cases where it's just like, you know, when you do these kind of interviews with people, it's like you feel a little pressure. You feel a little bit pressure, and it's like, oh, is this going to be all right? It was early in the morning and stuff. But I felt really good. As soon as he started talking, it turns into a little conversation, right? It's nice. Missed it, but I'll watch on YouTube and give it a like. Okay, great. Great. I'll make sure to push it here as well. I'm going to force you all to go and like it. I'm brighter than normal as well. I turned my ring light up a higher setting. What do you think about this? What do you think about the look? I'm a little bit brighter. And a tan, yeah. I'm gonna be the new Orange Man. It's gonna be Orange Man good. Orange Man good. When I start smearing self tanner all over myself. You definitely look more pale, which isn't bad, just an observation. I didn't know that was going to be possible. Did not know that it was going to be possible. Random question. Do you think politicians like Trudeau and Obama are more dangerous than Trump or Orban? It is an interesting question, Raul. I there's definitely an argument to be made about it, because people like Obama and Trudeau breed a sort of sense of complacency in the liberal class, while engaging in a lot of the same reactionary behaviors as their conservative counterparts do, but putting this kind of nice sheen on it, which I think allows liberals to think that everything's like going great in our society and our culture. Like Trudeau is someone, he's overseeing this ongoing genocidal colonialist project. And, you know, if you ask liberals about this guy, they think he's wonderful. He's a wonderful guy. Or you saw with Obama's foreign policy, you know? Bush was bad. Texan man bad for the Iraq war. But then Obama comes in there, and yeah, he didn't start another Iraq war, but he bombed 12 other fucking countries, murdered hundreds, if not thousands, of civilians, probably thousands, I think. Yeah, and then lectures us. Then people like Obama and Trudeau lecture us about not being engaged enough and not being inspired enough. And the left just wants they want everything. They want everything to go their way, with all their demands that we not murder people. Can you believe these lefties, these fucking lefties, demanding that we stop this ongoing murder campaign? Can't believe these freaks. Um, Obama told kids a couple months ago, just get used to not winning. Yeah, every victory will be incomplete. Let me be clear. I guarantee you, every victory will be incomplete. Thank you, sir. Thank you. That's what liberals do. They just manage expectations downward for everyone. And they do nice little signifiers to show how progressive they are without actually changing anything. But like on the other side of that argument, people like Trump or Orban, that are like openly racist and misogynist, that's not good either. Like on one hand, you have liberals that become very engaged during these times, and all of a sudden they care about migrants and they care about foreign policy and these things, sometimes foreign policy. Overall, though, I do think it's bad when the leader of a major country is out there like openly demonizing immigrants. Like the policy is the same. The immigration policy is the same no matter who it is. But I feel like it's still not good. It's destructive when you have a president that's out there like, calling migrants rapists and criminals and animals, and just inspires this whole like this really reactionary movement. Like, during the Trump administration, we kind of didn't. I think we've kind of forgotten about this, but there was multiple like mass shootings of migrants and Muslims. There was a mass shooting in a mosque in Quebec City, like near where I live. 6 people were murdered in this mosque by a mass shooter that was directly inspired by Trump and these right-wing demagogues. That's really destructive. It was not the first such incident.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Yeah, I agree. Obama had a worse immigration policy than Bush. He reminded us many times, deported more people than like any modern U.S. president. I guess the reason is like I think it's important to point out the ways that liberals like Obama or Trudeau or Joe Biden are just as bad when it comes to policy, when it comes to immigration policy or foreign policy or funding the police or backing capital and not everyday people. I think I'm uncomfortable saying like, oh, it's worse or it's more harmful than these like right-wing demagogues. I would stop short of saying that. They're both harmful for kind of different reasons. As you talked about yesterday, there are quantitative differences for LGBTQIA plus people too. Yeah, and that's not everything, right? It's like we say they don't do enough. But I do think it matters when you have a president, even if they're not legislating enough, saying like, we support trans people, rather than someone that's out there demagoguing and dehumanizing trans people. There is a difference. Toilet bowl toots. Toilet bowl toots. Thank you for the 8 months of tier 1. I really appreciate that. Thank you. We got a basketball comment. Got 900+ on Scotty Rook of the Year. I'm hoping for a payout. That's still a long shot, but yeah, not impossible. Not impossible. It was nice for the Raptors to get back. They've been looking really bad coming out of the All-Star break. A couple of really bad losses, which were demoralizing because it's right at the time that they need to start getting their shit together. All of a sudden, they got injuries. Losing Anunoby right now has been really tough for them not having Fred VanVleet. They immediately just looked like a professional basketball team again last night once Fred was back out there. Yeah, it was a big win. A very satisfying win. Hang on a second. I'm just going to close my bathroom door. I can hear my washing machine going. It's bothering me. I'll be 1 sec. This fit is really something else. Ah, boy. A pair of jeans to fit just right. I'm back in jean mode. Back in jean mode right now. Stop checking out my crotch seam. Was there a hole there? Oh boy. Let's not worry about that. Let's not worry about that. Yeah, though. The Raptors looking good. Feeling good about that. Will you play Elden Ring? Probably not. Probably not. It seems cool. Again, it's if you like it, good for you. That's fine. I'm just not really into RPGs. I'm not into the Dark Souls games or any of that. It's just not my thing. It's not that it's too hard. I'm just not into it. I don't know. I'm just not. Did you see valued community member piss ode to Christia Freeland? No, I don't think I did. Where was that? A lot of you too busy playing Elden Ring. And instead you should ring up your Elden relatives. And they want you to know that they miss you. Very true. Don't think I didn't see you workshop that on Twitter at Outrun. Don't think I didn't see that. Okay? I saw. I saw, all right. Figure out this hair situation. Okay, yeah, so Raptors, hopefully now that Fred's back, get OG going again, get him back in the lineup, heading into the playoffs. I feel good. I feel good about if they can stay healthy going into the playoffs, they're going to be a tough matchup. I don't want to be in that play-in tournament, though. I don't want the play-in. Is college basketball a thing? I mean, it's a thing, but it's not like it's like it's not popular. It's not this like big multi-billion-dollar popular institution, like in the States. Let OG's finger heal. I want to see more Scotty post-ups. It is truly amazing how much of a polished offensive player Scotty Barnes is. Which was a real surprise. Like, that was one thing about him coming out of the draft. That was the thing that he was not supposed to be able to do. And he's just like, he looked tremendous. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to the end of the season. That'll be cool. What else do we got going on? Yeah, I think I need my Diet Coke. Feeling pretty low energy. Remember when we were mad we didn't get Suggs? I know people love to second guess the Raptors front office after years of them crushing it in the draft and drafting amazing players, even like in the 20s or even in the second round. And people still, even years after doing this, after winning they literally won an NBA championship. And people still love to second guess the front office in the draft and be like, "Bah, I know better. I know better than these guys." And it's just like, Jesus Christ. Never doubt our Lord and Savior Messiah. That's right. Chin chin, everyone. That's Toronto fans for you. It's true. Can you hear the... You can't hear like the bubbles. I thought you could get some kind of ASMR Diet Coke situation. Don't have much of a plan for what we're going to talk about today. There's stuff that we can get into, definitely. I've been doing a lot of prep. I did a lot of preparation on Tuesday. I did a lot of preparation yesterday for my interview with Carl. Zero prep today. Zero prep. So we're gonna have to see where the afternoon takes us. Any word on Abby? You know what? She didn't write me back. The last time I wrote, she said that her in-laws are in town, so it's like kind of busy, is my understanding. I can check for tomorrow. We'll lock down Abby soon, though. We'll lock it down, okay? Venezuela's capitalist. It is truly amazing, Kijiji Genie, how it's like now that the Russian gas is getting turned off, you have Biden being like, "Hey, what's going on, Maduro? We love you guys. Why you want to help us out here? We're in a bit of a jam. We need some of that sweet, sweet Venezuelan oil." And they're starting to get the nice stories going in the news again, like clockwork. Juan Guaido seething. He's like, "Joe, please, will you answer my calls?" He's like, "I don't know who this is, Jack. I don't know any John Guido. How'd you get this number?" And he's just left on his own. It's amazing, the 180 that they're doing. New phone, new disc. It's amazing. You wonder as well if they're going to try and reestablish the Iran deal now as well too. There's this whole realignment happening because you see the Saudis are like sticking with Russia. The Saudis are backing Russia and are like not talking to the Americans. So now they have to go to try and talk to Iran and Venezuela, who I'm sure are just going to be thrilled. I'm sure Iran and Venezuela are just going to be thrilled to help out the good old US of A in their time of need. I'm sure they're just going to be like, yo, yes. Yes, I'd love to. I'd love to do that. The only one I know is the one nation under God, Jack. That's very funny, though. That's really funny. You have to laugh. Gas prices at $5 a gallon with jack shit public transportation is such a great place to be here in the US. Yo, yeah. And just this whole thing of like, it's Russia's fault, Mac. Yeah, the prices are going up. It's Russia. Blame Russia. I'm sure this is going to go over really well with most the average American. I'm sure there's, as well as Venezuela and Iran are going to be thrilled to like bend over backwards to help out Joe Biden right now. I'm sure the average American is going to be like, oh, no problem, sir. It's my patriotic duty. It's my patriotic duty to pay this much for gas, and I'd happily do it. I don't think they're going to be saying that at all. Is Russia right? Well, that's kind of an interesting question. I don't know. I mean, this has been something I've been trying to address. Well, first of all, like, yes, I do know. You can tell you these are the two thoughts that I think we should hold our minds when it comes to what's happening in Russia and Ukraine right now. Russia had legitimate security concerns leading up to this invasion. 2, they've gone far beyond like what could be reasonably called like a reaction to these legitimate concerns. And there's now cities being bombed. Civilians are dying. People are being killed. They're not right to do that. Okay? Like our friend VJ Prashad says, war itself is a crime. There's crimes being committed in this war, and war itself is a crime. In any circumstance. Twitter libs happy to make sacrifices for Ukraine. Well, I mean, that's the kind of thing we were talking about with Carl too, right? Yesterday, it's like, yeah, the war is a crime, absolutely, but that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be work right now to achieve some kind of peaceful solution quickly, so it doesn't escalate and spiral out of control. Which seems like our ruling class in politics and in the media, they seem very determined to just go down that path. And no, let's continue to, we want to save Ukraine, so let's continue to arm these like neo-Nazi militias. That I also don't agree with. In fact, we just put out this new episode of the Insurgents podcast. We took a little bit of time off the Insurgents podcast, and we just put out this new episode. I'll actually link it in the chat right now. We talked with Spencer Ackerman about the Ukraine invasion. We had a pretty good conversation with him as well, which I think was pretty productive. And kind of one of the main takeaways from one of the things that he was saying at the end of it, which is something that I kind of happen to agree with, is that you have these people that are holding these two viewpoints right now, right? Which I think you'll find are contradictory. People are saying, 1, we need to save Ukraine, and 2, we need to hand a big defeat to Russia. And people are going to have to start reckoning with the idea, no matter how much they don't like it, that saving Ukraine might involve pulling back off the idea of handing this big defeat to Russia. And defeating Russia at this point is probably going to involve sacrificing Ukraine even more, and sacrificing more innocent people in Ukraine to get to that point. Like, these two things are mutually exclusive, I think. This is the idea. It's difficult to wrap your mind around. I think if you're one of these people that's really, like, plugged into this, especially if you're not really aware of the context and you really view Russia as being just the sole aggressor in this situation. And again, it's their invasion, it's their war. They deserve the blame for that. It can be very like emotionally satisfying to be like, we must defeat Russia at any cost, even though NATO is not going to get involved, and it's like they're not going to like overtly fight them. People are going to have to reckon with this idea that saving Ukraine and saving the average Ukrainians that are being punished by all this, that are caught in the middle of all this, these two big powers, and defeating Russia, you kind of can't have these two things. Ukraine defeating Russia is a pipe dream. Well, that's what I've been talking about, Raul. It's like the only real situation where that seems like it's a possibility is through this protracted, bloody quagmire like Afghanistan, you know, in which Russia was defeated there as well. And that's not going to be good for average people in Ukraine. Like, they're going to be the first people to be punished for this, you know? And that's a years-long process of empowering the absolute worst people, the worst of the worst people in their society. And it's going to have all kinds of blowback for the whole world as well. Much like there was blowback from the invasion of Afghanistan, arming the Mujahideen and all this stuff that happened in the 80s. I'm certain there are powerful forces in the U.S. government that want another Afghanistan. I mean, that's exactly we talked about this on Tuesday, and I think I laid out a fairly compelling case that that's true, that there are people in the U.S. government that's what they've always been pushing for. You know, again, none of it is an excuse. It doesn't excuse invasions or crimes or bombing or civilian casualties or anything, but there has been an element here in the West that has been trying to provoke this conflict. Like I've been saying for a couple weeks now, pouring gasoline on this conflict with the hope that it does spiral out of control, much as it's doing now. Because then you have this destabilized situation. You can arm these extremist groups, much like the U.S. has been doing throughout the world for decades and decades and decades, which then destabilize and harm your common enemy. And pouring gasoline on the fire is getting more expensive. That's right. So, I thought that was the really interesting takeaway from our conversation with Spencer Ackerman on the insurgents this week. Just this idea that defeating Russia and saving Ukraine are somewhat mutually exclusive. You can't really have both. There is no situation where you have both. If Ukraine is going to be saved, if this invasion is going to be stopped, and the bombings are going to stop, that's going to happen through immediate de-escalation and diplomacy, and probably allowing Putin to get out with the understanding that he's like getting something out of this whole situation. And people don't like it. I mean, that's no one, you don't have to like it. Which is becoming a common refrain on here when we talk about these things. You don't have to like it. But if you care about saving lives at this point and ending the conflict, that's probably what it's going to take. Bob from Des Moines is willing to shed unlimited Ukraine blood to give Putin a black eye. That's exactly it. I mean, that's exactly what we're seeing the commentary from the West about this. Like Carl was saying yesterday, we're going to fight Russia to the last Ukrainian. Right? I don't believe in that. Saving the world from communism by turning it all into a radioactive crater. Well, they say better dead than red. Right? Nuclear winter may sound bad, but yeah. People are so brain poisoned to think that we're all the little HP health units of one big state instead of individuals. Ukrainians don't lose necessarily if their government falls and is replaced by some other government. That's not some certainty. I mean, yeah, that's true, James. And it's like, it seems to me from where these diplomatic talks are going, it's like, I don't even know if the Russians are pushing for that at this point. They said from the first day that like we don't have any intentions of occupying the country. Maybe there is a possibility of actually overthrow the government, install some puppet government, like do actual regime change. But I don't even know if that's going to be necessary to stop this thing. And what's probably going to be necessary is, agreeing to neutralization and recognizing these republics and recognizing Crimea. I mean, that's probably what it's going to take. Calling Putin's nuclear bluff. I'm all in, says brave Tim Hortons drinker, 7,700 kilometers from Ukraine. Are you going to cover the bioweapons thing today? I mean, I've been thinking about it, Ben. I'm very leery when it comes to this whole conflict about not becoming a propagandist for either side. You know what I mean? There's been a lot of there's a lot of people that are just like fully willing to just jump on board the information war on the Ukraine side. I've been trying to provide context for why all this is happening without becoming a PR guy for Russia. And there's just so much propaganda flying around right now. It's so hard to tell like what is reality and what isn't, that I'm leery to get too into that stuff without more information. Although the fact that China is talking about it is making me more warm up to the idea that there's at least something there. There's something there that's going on. There's kind of there's a smoke and fire situation happening with these biolabs. And now you have like Jen Psaki saying like, oh, the Russians are going to do a chemical weapon false flag and stuff. It's very strange. It's really hard to know what to believe. Do you think the genocide claim makes sense that's being brought up to the ICJ right now? What I'm not familiar exactly with what you're talking about, Freddie Boo. Are you talking about like what Russia has been saying about the sort of cultural genocide about ethnic Russians in East Ukraine? I'm not comfortable with much speculation on that front at this point. It's too murky. It's very murky. There's a big fog of war situation going on right now. And again, I'm leery I'm leery to act like I said, like a propagandist for either side at the moment. Because I live in the West, I do want to talk about what the West has done to contribute to this, and talk about actual like solutions, de-escalation, and this kind of stuff. I read today that they're former Soviet labs. The U.S. is helping clean them up since 2005. Takes a long time, I guess. At the same time, it's like I don't doubt that the U.S. is doing all kinds of fucked up shit in bioweapons labs, either in Ukraine or elsewhere. Like, I don't doubt that that's true. I guess what I mean, though, is that I'm a little leery just going like, oh yeah, this is what's happening. This is definitely what's happening. Without knowing more about it, you know? Yeah, like Red Scary, like I do. We do know that the U.S. is up to some very nefarious shit when it comes to this kind of research. I don't doubt that at all. Hi, Chad. I don't want to stream today. I'm sorry to hear that, Nicole. I'm pretty low energy myself. I'm pretty low energy myself right now. The U.S. statement was very carefully worded to say that they don't operate any labs in Ukraine. And that's what I mean, metal dipshit. It's like, I don't doubt that there's something there. It feels like there's like like I said, like a smoke and fire situation. I don't doubt that there's something to that, something to this. And especially when I see China starting to talk about, who I know have been very reticent to get too involved in this. And like we were talking about, Carl, have kind of tried to be the adults in the room here and have tried to encourage negotiation. You know, like Carl was saying yesterday, they've got friendly relations with Ukraine and with Russia. They have this partnership with Russia, and they're trying to, respect everyone's sovereignty and security concerns. But then when I see China's diplomats, who have been very reticent again to step into this, and accusing the U.S. of all kinds of stuff, I mean, that makes me think more than anything that there is something there, because I don't think they would be doing that if there wasn't some sense of like certainty that something nefarious was going on. I saw this actually. I saw this, Nicole. Shit, sorry. Trying to put this new chat and it's fucked everything up. You can't really deny, though, that this has been one of the most cringe wars. I never thought that the propaganda war, the info war, and this war would be so cringe. Yeah. There was a whole... Someone compiled a couple of these. Oh, what's that guy's name? This guy from Mint Press News. By the way, Nicole, what do you think of this purple shirt? What do you think about this? Can I get you to weigh in on this? Just okay. Wow. Okay. That's interesting. This one's good. This one's interesting too. What do we think about this? Let me make this perfectly clear. Putin is Emperor Palpatine. The Ukrainian people and all those who stand up for democracy around the world and here in America are Rey Skywalker, Jyn Erso, and the Rebel Alliance. Pick your side. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Matthew. And then we saw this one. Oh boy, did we ever see this one. Yeah, actually, they're the Viet Cong. I mean, you're already messing up the central narrative of that movie, which is very easy to understand. It's extremely easy to understand the central narrative of Star Wars, and people still mess it up. More relationship comparison madness. Oh man, I don't think I saw this one. By the way, I did like the tweet. Bad Bunny, in case you didn't notice that.
and quickly realize that these gays have
Okay, let's see this. This just seems like it's going to be painful.
around the table and quickly realize that these gays have no idea what's going on. So I'm like, how can I explain this to them in a way that they'll understand? So here it is. Ukraine is a submissive bottom. Russia is a dom top. They have been in a complicated relationship with each other for a long time, until Ukraine decided that she wanted to be a strong, independent woman, and she left Russia behind in 1991. Okay, that was 30 years ago. Since then, she is doing everything that she can to better herself and be independent, and is trying to join, and really wants to be a part of the plastics, right? So the plastics being NATO. Now, not anybody can just join the plastics. I mean, you can't just sit with us. You actually have to go through a lot, and all countries have to unanimously decide that they want to allow Ukraine to join NATO, which they have been trying to do, and I think they're actually supposed to join in 2024. But Russia knows what is happening. So they're like, bitch, you can't leave me and then go join this group and live out your life. Like, I want you back. So that is why the war started, right? So what's going on in the United States and why is our gas prices so high? Well, the only thing that we can really do without actually stepping foot on Russian soil is to put sanctions against them, because we don't feel like they should be making profit and money off of us,
17
while they're invading Ukraine. That has led to the increase in gas prices. Now, we only get like 8% of our oil and natural gas from Russia, which doesn't seem like a lot, but 8 to 10 inches is a pretty good amount. So yes, that is going to lead to the increase in gas prices by about 50%, 50 cents per gallon. But I'm okay with that. Like, I'm over here chilling. I'm like, I'll pay a little bit more for gas. I'll pay a little bit more for my unlimited mimosas than have rockets blasting through our apartments and people dying in the middle of a world war. I mean, let's think about that for a minute. Now, we're doing everything that we can to help them, but this complicated relationship is really between Russia and Ukraine. Like, other countries have sent military support and over into Ukraine.
Does it go on more?
Around the table and quickly realize that
Well, it seems like he was cut off. He was cut off there.
Listen up, girlies.
Oh, no,
I'm going to try my best to explain the Russian.
This is all shit that I see on my timeline and I purposely do not look at. I purposely don't look at it for this exact reason.
I'm going to try my best to explain the Russian-Ukraine conflict to you for us. So back in the 90s, Russia and Ukraine used to be a thing, but things got really messy and they broke up. And Russia was all like, you'll never find a man like me. And Ukraine was like, all right. And then years later, it turns out Ukraine is thriving and living her best life. So then a group of besties called NATO was like, hey, Ukraine, if you kick it with us, we'll all protect each other from war. And Ukraine's like, okay. And then Russia's all like, no, these girls are toxic. They promised never to get in between me and my girl. Ukraine's like, whoa, chill out. I'm literally not your girl. Like, moveon.com. Russia's like, whoa, why are you getting so aggressive? And Ukraine's like, I'm literally not. So Russia's like, if you and your girls mess with me and my boys are gonna mess with you. Listen up, girlies. I'm going to try my best to explain the Russian-Ukraine conflict to you.
I've heard this one's actually okay. Okay, hold on. I didn't watch this. This is another one. I don't know if it's cringe or not.
For us. So back in the 90s, Russia and Ukraine used to be
This is the modern American political spectrum reaction to Russian invasion of Ukraine. Okay, here we go.
Father Ukraine, I stand with the Ukraine. Iraq was just a desert with people living in tents and caves. Ukraine is a civilized nation. Terrorists aren't getting bombed this time. It's people, real people, with blonde hair and blue eyes just like me. Who doesn't want to roll with the big boys? Welcome to NATO, Ukraine. But Russia has nukes pointing at us, so hit them low-key in a way that would hurt me. Their wallets. Tell the politicians to seize all oligarchs' assets. With all this extra money, you could spend our winters in Poland and our summers in New Russia. Wow, the Russian bots and propaganda is at full force, huh? All of a sudden, Ukrainians are racist? I never heard about Ukrainians being racist before. Of course they're racist. It's an all-white country in Europe. The most woke country there throws bananas at soccer players. I read one article, but choosing a side is easy. It's like the Cold War. But why are they banning YouTube ads and Facebook in Russia? They shouldn't be rewarded for going to war. Here's an explanation for us. So like back in the 90s, Russia and Ukraine used to be a thing, but then they broke up. So Russia started love bombing her with stuff like, watch out for the USA. Ukraine was living her best life, okay? Poor, hungry, and thriving. So Russia's just mad that she found a new tall light skin named NATO who has money, goes to church, and lets her beat their kids, LPR and DPR. Russia's so controlled. Got rid of everything Russian faster than they did Confederate statues. But why is there such a bloodthirsty focus on this war? What about the bombings in Yemen by American weapons? What about the American bombings in Somalia? We shouldn't be cheering on sanctions. Putin isn't gonna feel the brunt of this. It's gonna be the people. But I guess this country is used to making poor people suffer. This war started before a single Russian boot ever hit the ground. Let us remember that war comes in many forms. Aggression comes in many forms. And the US and NATO are masters of war without the appearance of war. Chauvinism and solipsism will cause the West to forget that America initiated a coup in the Ukraine in 2014 with aid of fascists. Then NATO bombed Libya, Afghanistan, Yugoslavia, and turned their countries into rubble. Eastern Europe's in a sorry state today because they dissolved the USSR. And you think Russia would forget about this and allow an alliance of such history act upon its borders with weapons and troops? Russians have their own memories, they have their own interests, they're not just objects to be treated upon with US pleasure. Geopolitics is not trying to figure out who the good guys and bad guys are in this situation. Geopolitics is attempting to study the factors that lead to major events in mankind's short but violent history. If you want to figure out who the good guys and bad guys are, I recommend you read a fantasy novel. The bad guys.
That last guy was making some points. That last guy was making a couple points. And his outfits are incredibly good. This is a guy that's got drip. Do you think I could pull this kind of thing off? Like a big, like, puffy coat thing? Could I do that? What if I just showed up on the stream one day and I had something similar to that? I'm going to say yes just because I want to see you try. Let me be honest, I support you. Yes, you can. Okay, we'll see about this. That far left one part was good though. This one was actually good. This was not cringe at all. If you ever have me on again, you better come in your fullest drip. Okay, I'll see what I can do. We can have you on again, Marina. I'll come all dripped up. I got some good jackets. Okay? Remember, I used to be like a rock and roll guy. You don't think I got jackets? Yeah, I got jackets. Believe me. Rock and roll is mostly about jackets. That's right. That was really good, this video. And the far left guy was making some serious points. Here in Frisco, we have a street named Russia. Someone covered it up to make it look like it says Ukraine. Right next to it was 4 big-ass wheat paste. One read, no fly zone over Ukraine. The other one read, support democracy, with an American flag and a Ukrainian flag. I asked the bodega for a ladder and tore all them down. The liberal brain rot has turned suicidal. Just completely like nonsensical series of beliefs there. Yeah, this was really good. I wonder if are there more like this? I seriously haven't met a single person IRL with the correct perspective. I'm surrounded by Putin bad. I fortunately just don't hang out with a lot of people IRL. So that's how I get around that. I did hang out with my friend Dave the other day. And we went out to a bar and got Korean chicken. And I was giving him I was fully pilling him on all this stuff. I was fully pilling him on this entire thing. And he was receptive to it. So. Rob has a cache of glam rock jackets in his basement like John Wick. He just crush it with the sledgehammer. Same as Super, he's making up the meeting people IRL part. Initiating him into the cult. In all honesty, because he was talking about the NDP and he was talking about like Matthew, because he's lived in Hamilton part of the year and was talking about Matthew Green and stuff. And I was like, yeah, you know, Matthew Green, like I know him. I've talked to him on my podcast and stuff. He's okay. But, and then I was giving the whole spiel about the NDP and totally like convincing him why the NDP is in fact not good, despite having some okay people and saying the good things. And he was like, oh, okay, yeah, I can kind of see that. And I was like, you know, you should check out the old Communist Party of Canada. You should take a look at that. They got a number of viewpoints that are like, I think pretty good on this kind of stuff. And he was like, I've never really like learned much about communism. And I was like, well, we live in a society that we're heavily inundated with anti-communist we're told from cradle to grave that we can never ever learn about communism because it's bad. But why is that? Who benefits from that? Right? Kind of weird, isn't it? When they tell you over and over that you're not allowed to look into that, it's kind of, maybe they're doing that for a reason. To be fair, it was a group of friends I was playing D&D with over video chat. I consider that IRL. That is the opposite of IRL. Anyway, yeah. I made some headway. I made some headway on that. I feel good about it. Laugh about there's nothing funny about online D&D. That's cool. In fact, I was talking to Lodane about how we should eventually do some kind of community tabletop thing. This is actually something that I would like to do on this show. I would like to do that. The question is whether like IRL is literally like when you're with people in real life. That's what it stands for. That is what it stands for. That's the basic notion that we're talking about here. Nothing wrong with playing D&D. We could do a D&D. Lodane was talking about this like aliens universe. This like aliens universe D&D. I thought I would really enjoy that. I think we should do this. Rob, I'm stealing your content on my stream again. Is that okay? I mean, I'm always happy to provide when women look to me to help out with anything, including making content on twitch.tv. So yeah, I'm more than happy. That's kind of what I'm about. That's a big part of my values. So provide me with a big diamond then. I think we established, Red Scary, that the ongoing pink diamond bit, is more valuable than the diamond itself. That's what matters here. The bit. Okay? I don't want to sacrifice that. The ongoing pink diamond back and forth is a big part of this community. Maybe the pink diamond was the friends we made along the way. Yeah, but I would like to do this though. Is there because I know Lodane would be involved with this. If we did a community tabletop situation, whether it's D&D or something else, if we could get a handful more people in, I would absolutely do this. I've always wanted to do these games, and I've just never been able to do it. I've never had an opportunity to do it. Pissed is in. Hell yeah. That would be so cool. I would really enjoy that. Stream them as well. Yeah, that would be the whole point. Marina's never played. We got lots of volunteers here. Sean Mead. We're going to have some kind of system to get everyone involved in this. Okay, so we can do this. Okay, we'll do this. Is there any more Russia-Ukraine explainers, like cringy or non-cringy? Russia-Ukraine explainers? That we should take a look at?
Reason why you should understand what there's no reason why you shouldn't understand what's happening in Ukraine and Russia if your family ever been through a divorce. So we're gonna spill the tea and I'm gonna explain this in terms you can actually understand. So get this, Daddy Russia and Mommy Ukraine were married. They were called USSR. And then Ukraine decided to separate. A divorce was finalized after a few years and now they were called Russia and Ukraine. But here's the thing, Russia and Ukraine had a lot of kids together. And a lot of them live in both Russia and Ukraine. They have 44 million kids and 40% of them are like, nope, I like Daddy Russia more. And the other 60% are like, nope, I support Mommy. Mommy
this is like
Ukraine. Russia is obsessed with Ukraine and he wants to get her back. He would do anything to get her back. And Ukraine is like, nope, I'm gonna date other people. So Mommy Ukraine started dating other people and she started dating USA. Russia and USA are two cartels that hate each other. And Russia found out and was like, nope, if I can't have you, nobody can have you. So he started sending stalkers and spies to spy on Ukraine. Russia is like that crazy ex-husband you can never get rid of. So USA became Ukraine's new sugar daddy.
Still not great.
Weapons, investments, and stuff. Ukraine loves this. It's like, hey, I'm getting spoiled. So Sugar Daddy USA was like, hey, Ukraine, I know you have baby daddy drama going on over in Russia. And, you know, he's a bit obsessed.
I guess I was a little more encouraged by this one because she at least mentioned that there's like part of the 44 million kids, that there is a sizable chunk of these people that do want to be in Russia. That's actually more nuanced generally than is like presented on the media when you hear about this. This is still not great though. This is still not very good. I was just trying to give credit where it was due though.
And violent. So why don't you join my friend group, NATO? You know, there's a lot of friends there. Germany, Canada, Turkey, France, and we're gonna help you if there's ever a problem. Ukraine was like, maybe that's a good idea, But Russia found out. So Russia wrote a 20-page love letter for the whole world to read, written by Vladimir Putin. It's like, I know I made a lot of mistakes, but USA is making a deliberate effort to get in between us. USA wants to divide and rule us. And he's talking about how happy their family were, and he says, if you want to be happy, Ukraine, it's only going to happen with the partnership with Russia. We're going to be stronger and successful together. It was actually pretty convincing. Ukraine was like, you keep bullying me, Russia. I think I might take USA's offer. And Russia was like, why would you do that, you dumb fucking bitch? Don't you know what they did to Somalia, Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan? And just like with any divorce, the kids are the one to suffer. So to summarize all of this up,
what the hell's wrong with you? I love you, Jessica. Jessica, what the hell is wrong with you, dude? Don't fucking touch me. I love you, dude. World star! What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? I know, dude.
there's no reason why you shouldn't understand.
That was kind of funny, though. That was kind of funny. Yeah, again, just more nuance than you're going to see in this one from most mainstream media coverage of this conflict. Mention the people in Russia. There's actually people in Ukraine that want to be part of Russia. That's number one. You don't really hear that very much on CNN, MSNBC, this kind of stuff. Mentioning, U.S. war crimes as well in this context, which you don't hear about as much about. So still cringe, still unpleasant to look at. Overall, though, this is probably a better analysis than you see from most mainstream media sources about this conflict. Cringe, but balanced. That's right.
Understand what's happening in Ukraine and Russia? If you're
This one was just straight up good. Molambo. This guy's got a lot of good ones, it seems like. Oh, looking on the wrong page. Looking on the wrong page. Good. Okay. So, I don't know, do we need to keep investigating this genre? Do you think we need to keep investigating this genre, or are we good now? Oh, here's this is gonna be music. I'm gonna get TOS for this music one. This is like someone pointing. This I'll just show you. We can look without the music. Of course, if Twitch allowed us to look at this thing with music, then it would make a lot more sense. But something like that. If I can try and recreate it. I didn't understand what was happening with Russia and Ukraine until I saw someone explaining it like this. Russia, Kanye, wants Ukraine, Kim, back, and NATO, Pete Davidson, said no. Oh, don't leave pissed. Come on. We have to laugh sometimes. We have to smile sometimes. Okay? This would be better with the music, definitely. I don't know. I did see Brian Becker had a new video that was out today about whether Russia is imperialist. The idea of like, is this like an imperialist action? That could maybe be something we could explore a little bit. What do we think about that? We can take a look at that. Okay. Sorry. Oh, this is good. Folks probably saw this, but this was great. And I'm not just saying that.
In times of catastrophic crisis where the lives of... There's no doubt about it, we're living in times of catastrophic crisis where the lives of innocent civilians are sacrificed in the wars of their masters. Yes, in Ukraine, but not only. Since the last plenary, tens of thousands of Afghani citizens have been forced to flee in search of food and safety. 5 million children face famine, an agonising and painful death, a 500% increase in child marriages and children being sold just so they can survive, and not a mention of it, not here, not anywhere. No wall-to-wall TV coverage, no emergency humanitarian response, no special plenaries, not even a mention in this plenary, no Afghani delegations and no statements. My God, they must be wondering, what makes their humanitarian crisis so unimportant? Is it the colour of their skin? Is it that they're not white, they're not European, that their problems come from a US gun or a US invasion? Is it that the decision to rob their country's wealth was taken by a despotic US president rather than a Russian one? Because, my God, all wars are evil and all victims deserve support, and until we get on that page, we have no credibility whatsoever. There's no doubt.
Give me someone in the ADP's got to step up and say something like this. Why can't someone in Canadian Parliament somehow make this case with this kind of passion? Come on, this is great shit. I'm not really familiar with Claire. NDP is cucked on foreign policy. Yes, they are. Yes, they absolutely are. And Canada does suck. That is true. This was just a great clip, though. I was really happy to see this. You're going to be waiting a while for the NDP to say anything along these lines. Yeah. And again, like I've talked about, there's some okay people in the NDP, but no one that's out there saying this. No one that's out there saying this. the leader of the Quebec Green Party. Yeah, I saw that root beard. I thought that was quite a, in terms of like our political climate, the leader of the Quebec Green Party said some pretty wild shit, which I was happy to hear, frankly, considering it was like so contrary to everything that our political class has been saying about this. Your fight scene, we can take a look again. It's really short.
There's no doubt about it, we're living in times of catastrophic crisis where the lives of innocent civilians are sacrificed in the wars of their masters. Yes, in Ukraine, but not only. Since the last plenary, tens of thousands of Afghani citizens have been forced to flee in search of food and safety. 5 million children face famine, an agonising and painful death, a 500% increase in child marriages and children being sold just so they can survive, and not a mention of it. Not here, not anywhere. No wall-to-wall TV coverage, no emergency humanitarian response, no special plenaries, not even a mention in this plenary, no Afghani delegations and no statements.
What's up,
My God, they must be wondering, what makes their humanitarian crisis so unimportant? Is it the colour of their skin? Is it that they're not white? They're not European? That their problems come from a US gun or a US invasion? Is it that the decision to rob their country's wealth was taken by a despotic US president rather than a Russian one? Because, my God, all wars are evil and all victims deserve support, and until we get on that page, we have no credibility whatsoever. There's no doubt.
I mean, I think this is an idea that I've often, I feel, tried to articulate on this show. This idea of credibility, right? And like, it's not that we shouldn't denounce human rights violations, or we shouldn't denounce wars or invasions. Like, we should do that. My issue has always been that, like, if Canada or the United States or any of these Western countries want to have, this is the key word, credibility. We have zero credibility. Our governments don't. I mean, the average person, of course, we should condemn all these things. The average person has credibility. Our governments, though, and first of all, the average person only has credibility if you acknowledge the reality of what our own governments get up to. If you don't, then no, you don't have credibility either. But our governments, when we stand up and make proclamations about human rights violations in official enemy countries, while we ourselves are committing these very same human rights violations or worse, or we're subsidizing them with our strong allies as they carry out human rights violations, what credibility do we have to be lecturing anybody, lecture other countries about what they're doing? Zero. So I'm really happy to see someone articulating this basic idea. You know, it's not that we shouldn't denounce these things, but we've got to have some kind of basic moral framework in place where we stop carrying out these very same crimes, and then we might have some credibility when we start wagging our finger at other countries when they do bad things. This issue of credibility, I think, is really important. We don't have the West does not. We have zero credibility when it comes to talking about human rights. Zero. And the Global South is aware of this. The Global South knows all about the Western history of our so-called rules-based international order and our love of and respect for all human rights. The Global South knows full well that the West is 100% full of shit when we start making these proclamations. So that's one of the main reasons why we have to start. We have to stop committing these crimes. Not only one, because it's morally fucking ghastly. Number two, we don't have credibility when it comes time to start talking about human rights violations anywhere else in the world. By the way, Jonathan Vare, thank you very much for the raid. I didn't thank you properly. You were watching this video. Thank you, Jonathan. Welcome, raiders. Thank you. Thank you for coming on in. Join the stream. Happy to have you. This is the tragic consequence of speaking truth. Mick Wallace has also been good about this. Yeah, it is. And this is why people are afraid to make these statements. Nazi stickers placed on offices of Claire Daly and Mick Wallace. So this is part of this is, if I'm not mistaken, right, this is like the European Parliament, right? Like not the Irish Parliament, but like the European Parliament. Is that correct? But Rob, talking about Afghan suffering is whataboutism, because they're not white. You can't believe they don't get this, because they're not white. Can't believe you don't get this fact. Yeah, and as I've been saying, and as my personal friend Vijay Prashad was saying when he came on the stream, when you live in a country that commits horrific crimes, that overthrows other governments, that destabilizes other countries through military means or through economic means, you bomb, you invade, you kill civilians, you bomb schools and hospitals, you fund our partners. We fund our partners in Israel while they bomb and murder and destroy and keep Gazans in an open air prison camp. We fund and we arm the Saudi Arabians while they relentlessly bomb Yemen for years. You know, creating the worst humanitarian crisis in the world. When we do all these things, and then we say, but what about Russia? Look what Russia's doing. Can you believe these beastly Russians? That's whataboutism. That's what, when you're denying your own, when you're ignoring your own crimes, or just hand waving away this litany of horrific criminal behavior, and then wagging your finger at another country, even if sometimes it's deserved. Even if sometimes it's deserved, even if these countries are doing bad things. That's whataboutism. You know, when you're focusing on anywhere else but what you yourself are doing. When you hold other countries and other places to this moral standard that you yourself have never lived up to. That's whataboutism. You know, the whole idea of what whataboutism is has been completely flipped on its head from what it should actually mean. Right? When you're fucking American and you're lecturing another country about committing human rights, about not respecting borders, that's whataboutism. Because you're ignoring your long history of engaging in this exact fucking behavior. And that's what I mean. It's like we should be able to condemn, George W. Bush or Condoleezza Rice condemning this invasion. Like, they don't have a fucking leg to stand on. This is the issue. And saying all this stuff is not a defense of Russia. It's not a defense of any country that's bombing or invading or killing people. What it is, though, it's just recognizing that we don't live up to this moral standard, so we can't wag our fingers about countries that also fail to live up to this standard. I still can't believe they had the balls to say it was the first attack on a sovereign nation since World War II. And again, Joe Biden, President of the United States, not only carrying out massive, horrific human rights crimes right at this very day, bombing Somalia, starving Afghanistan, sanctioning Cuba and North Korea and these countries and making it in Iran and making it harder for them to, have access to food and medicine. In addition to these crimes that Joe Biden's committing right now, directly, right at this moment. An enthusiastic cheerleader of the Iraq War, Joe Biden. As much as he tried to rewrite history on that, Joe Biden, an enthusiastic supporter of the Iraq War. And now he's talking about this unprecedented, undemocratic invasion. Again, saying all this stuff is not to say, oh no, that means the invasion is fine. Far from it. Far from it. But it means that we don't have any credibility. The West doesn't have credibility on any of this stuff.
Of Russian
I mean, I'm going to support pretty much any politician that shows up to work like this, first of all.
incursions of Russian forces into Ukraine are an act of aggression and a serious violation of the UN Charter. They have already resulted in loss of life. The pretext President Putin is using to justify his decision are contrary to international law and cannot be supported. Russian arguments about its security interest in the face of NATO expansion are valid and should be taken seriously, but they do not justify the decision Russia has now taken. We echo the call of the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. The conflict must stop now. The only legitimate forum for addressing Russia's actions at an international level is the United Nations. Unilateral action from the US, EU or NATO only risks further escalation. We oppose any military response just as unequivocally as we oppose Russia's actions. Russia must withdraw its troops from Ukraine immediately, cease all military operations and resume diplomatic engagement. All parties must work to restore the Minsk process as the only path to a peaceful resolution of the conflict. The responsibility for opening hostilities is solely with President Putin, but we do not withdraw our long-standing criticism of NATO's brinksmanship and recklessness of Western policy on Ukraine.
Putin bad, NATO bad. Oh my gosh. Oh, woo. Oh my goodness. This radical propaganda. People really struggle with this basic distinction. Putin bad, NATO bad. Easy. It's actually pretty easy.
Both Russia and the West bear responsibility for creating conditions of instability and confrontation in Ukraine in pursuit of their strategic and economic interest. Despite rhetoric, Europe hasn't been a friend of Ukraine. The country has been used as a pawn, and Ukrainian lives have been treated as expendable. It is the first duty of the European anti-war movement to criticise the role of European and allied governments in fanning the flames of the conflict, not just governments over which it has little influence. In the months to come, it is all the more important.
So we live in the West, so we should focus on what our governments have been doing to contribute to this? Rather than focusing on a government that we have nothing to do with and no influence on? The scientist from Independence Day is spitting, that's right.
And allied governments in the anti-war movement to criticise the role of European and allied governments in fanning the flames of the conflict, not just governments over which it has little influence. In the months to come, it is all the more important that this duty is upheld. Thank you.
That was good. I really have to go to the bathroom, folks. I didn't go to the bathroom before we started the stream today. I'm not going to go for a long time. No, you see, Rob, I have influence over Putin and G with my Reddit account, of course. If you post a picture of them, like, kissing each other, they're both going to be forced to resign in disgrace. If you do this. It's this one weird trick that Putin doesn't want you to know about. How long is that Brian Becker video? Here's what I'll leave you with this, okay? While I just go to the bathroom. I was mentioning the episode of The Insurgents that we just did. We're not going to listen to the whole thing. I think it's a really good conversation, so I think you should give it a listen. Talking with Spencer Ackerman about this. You can find it here. But I'm just going to put on this part at the end. I'll let it play for you for a bit while you hear what Spencer says about this. Okay, because I think this is an important point that he makes here. Okay, so I'm going to put this on and I'm just going to go to the bathroom just for a moment.
We see what you decided to do. You decided to generate. They have in fact been successful. That are
very little in
the oil politics stuff.
So I'm sure they're going to.
I'm sure they're going to be right on that. In the same way that we are horrifically learning who readily about a narrative
aesthetic, and it's armed.
That be a typical experience. I don't want to shit. Is nevertheless something that I think has a very distorting effect in
how do we encourage dialogue? How do we stop this from happening? Escalate our political leaders.
Escalation that humanity can really afford fucking least right now.
Yeah, and it touches on something that you were mentioning before, and this is, I think, one of the most alarming things about the discourse that has been happening around here, both in the media and from our political leaders, which is that really the only solutions that we're actually hearing from people that have platforms are just, how do we continue to escalate this? How do we escalate this into a bloody, protracted, sectarian insurgency?
I guess
no one is suggesting how do we de-escalate? How do we engage in diplomacy? How do we encourage dialogue? How do we stop this from happening and stop it from getting worse? It seems like the only thing anyone is interested in talking about is how do we make this exponentially worse, and that's a very frightening prospect.
So I guess I would just say this as kind of a last thing. It seems like the war thus far has concealed two divergent, American, approaches / objectives here. The first one is save Ukraine. The second one is defeat Russia. At a superficial level, these things seem inextricable, right? Because Russia's the one who invaded Ukraine, who else would Ukraine be defeating? But the difference is that at a certain point, and this point has to be the intervention of diplomacy, very aggressively so, to force the escalation and find a way out of this as quickly as humanly possible, is that the imperative of inflicting a defeat on Russia that the West is really feeling right now will have as its battlefield Ukraine, and Ukraine will not be saved. Ukraine will be made to suffer. Ukraine will be the battleground of a great power competition that Putin had said was already underway and was prompting this. And now everyone's narrative becomes self-reinforcing. And the only people who directly suffer the most are Ukrainians and then Russians under sanctions. And then who knows how Putin will decide to try and break that deadlock. And that is how these things really escalate in very frightening ways, and ought to underscore the importance of how saving Ukraine may involve giving up the objective of inflicting a defeat on Russia. It may involve the objective, because this is how diplomacy works when it's actually positive sum, of allowing Putin some way to say, short of invading and devastating and occupying Ukraine, that he got something out of this so he can see a way out. I gotta tell you, reading this book that goes through the history of Vladimir Putin, it doesn't really seem like he's interested in that shit. So I am not pretending like I have a formula for that. I am articulating an imperative that will be extremely arduous, but must be pursued while simultaneously being the most difficult political position to sell, because it cuts against the impulse that is a very satisfying one emotionally right now in Western publics to defeat Russia, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It just
again, that was sorry if I was muted there. That's kind of the takeaway from this conversation with Spencer Ackerman that I thought was pretty valuable. That people have to kind of let go of this idea. Let go of this idea that you can save Ukraine and defeat Russia. Next level Rob is pausing to comment on Rob's point. That's right. I was thinking about just putting like a picture of myself in the corner while I was gone, so you could all pretend that I was still here and talking. Could I do that one day? I could just put on a podcast that I did and just put an image of myself in the corner. Like, what if could I do that? You know, Tom, it's worth pointing out that, talking about Eastern Europe and the Baltics, who had a massive decline in living standards once the Soviet Union collapsed. I don't think we talk about that enough. This idea, this extremely bad historical experience with Russia, when Russia, like literally 20 million Soviet citizens and Russians died in World War II, defeating fascism, defeating the Nazis. That kind of bad historical experience? Like what bad historical experience? I think defeating fascism was actually a pretty important thing for Eastern Europe. And raising living standards for millions of people in Eastern Europe was also very important as well. Albania is an interesting example. Albanians, like, the quality of life under the Soviet Union, under Enver Hoxha in Albania, was just increased drastically. Women's rights. I know how bad it was before 1989. Well, I mean, listen, the collapse of the Soviet Union obviously was a very difficult thing. Why did things get to that point, though? You're also talking about a situation where the Soviet Union and Russia in particular was undermined by decades of imperialism as well. Western powers poured billions and hundreds of billions of dollars and decades of destabilization into ensuring that the Soviet Union would be on the brink of collapse at that time in 1989, like how you're describing. And when this moment came, there was a massive drop in living standards. And this is very well documented. Very well historically documented. Like, I've been to the Czech Republic. And I've been to the evil Museum of Socialism. The Museum of Socialism in Czech Republic. I've been there. I know that there's been a strong push over the last 30 years to paint socialism in this light. I'm very familiar with this. I've been to this museum in Czech Republic. NATO and the US is directly responsible for the conditions there because they were the ones that backed the illegal dissolution of the USSR. This is kind of my point, yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to get into a debate about it with you. You know, you can feel free to believe whatever you want. What if I just did this, though?
Only is the next year a real way are fought under
in the media. There's been, so could you speak to kind of?
I take a road trip for family reasons this weekend. I'm like, holy shit, gas is really expensive, and I don't know which way that cuts. It's just like a fact.
But I mean, when on the day of the invasion, though, Biden specifically asked America's altruistic, moral oil CEOs to not price gouge or not do any of that stuff. So I'm sure they're going to.
I'm sure they're going to be right on that. Like,
yeah.
You know, there's a bill that it's by, among other sponsors, Liz Cheney and Alyssa Slotkin, that like is going to basically move aggressively. So like U.S. based oil companies can step into the business of supplying, you know, Germany and, you know, however else it works. With the loss of Nord Stream 2. So, like, the Ukrainian people are going to lose here, but the oil companies are definitely not, right? Like,
this is sick. What? Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that. Here I am. I should probably promote this more, shouldn't I? I guess I just assume that people know this stuff. That's probably a bad way of going about things, isn't it? There's supposed to be an audio version of this show. I'm supposed to do an audio version. I just never get around to it. I just don't have enough fucking time. But yeah, that's the pod. This is in the Insurgents podcast is what the show I do with Jordan Ewell, my colleague Jordan Ewell. We started doing it about 2 years ago, right at the. We started the podcast to cover the Democratic primary, pretty much. That I thought Bernie Sanders was going to win, and we've covered everything that's happened since, basically on a week by week basis. A lot of great guests on this show, though. A lot of great guests. I think I get a little bit more subversive here than I do on the show. It's my idea for the Insurgents podcast was always to make something that would be like welcoming to more liberal types, and then to kind of slowly pull them into the web of subversive, you know, pro-communist content. Here is where I more just like go for it, and I more just like say all the stuff that's in my mind without being coy about it. I was Rob Build on 49th Parallel. It took me a long time to find this Twitch stream after that pod ended. It's really like, I really try to make it easy for people, and it's very difficult. In the last episode of 49th Parallel, I believe I specifically said, this is where I'm going to be doing all my stuff, but I guess I'm too shy about promoting this kind of stuff. It is devious, Sinchal. It is devious. This is the podcast, yes. The Insurgents. And it's where we talk more about, like, specifically what's going on in America, what's going on in the American government and stuff like that. You're the guy from Twitter. I guess so. Yeah, not really even anymore. I, like, barely tweet anymore. Now I just more do this. Why didn't you call it the Rob Roux Show? That's very clever. I didn't have anyone saying that in the week one. In week one of doing this show. I didn't have everyone coming in and saying that exact same thing. Thank you. You're going to fit right in here. You're the guy with the MS-13 daughter. That's right. Rob, you remembered to tweet. No, I did not. No, I did not. I did not remember. I guess I didn't really have anything like planned specifically, so I didn't want. Sometimes I don't want to like encourage people to come here from Twitter, and then they come in and I'm like dancing or like listening to MIDI tracks of the 80s pop songs and stuff. You know? Like, I'll tell them to come watch if I'm doing something important. Sometimes I tell the people to watch, and then I come in, I'm talking about, like, beverages. Or water. I talked about water beds for, like, 30 minutes yesterday. You've got MIDI track of 80s pop songs you're holding out on us. All right, well, since it's your first time in the stream, Ezer, I'll just give you a little, example of like the kind of stuff we get up to, the kind of shenanigans and tomfoolery that we like to get up to over here. Okay, and it's like I actually am a little low on subs, and it's getting late. The hour is growing late, so I should probably do this anyway. Okay, you ready for this, Ezer? This is the real experience of this show, okay? Here we go. Great song. They're only previews, though. They're only previews. So the whole subscribe thing was not a bit, though. Like, I do need people to subscribe.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, John McCain's Ghost. Thank you for gifting the sub to Ezer. Now, Ezer, you can use emotes of, like, my face and stuff when you go on Twitch.
Count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Fight Scene, for gifting us up. Another classic bit.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Kijiji Genie, for the gifted sub as well. Slub to Krob. Oh my god, the Krob is very disturbing. Very, very disturbing stuff. One of my earliest TRRS streams was the Matant Discourse, and if someone gives 5 subs, you can see me doing the Matant dance from that very stream.
Some guy, Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
Great timing. Thank you for the raid, Lucid Fox. We're talking about serious, important journalism over here. We're talking about very serious, important journalism at the moment. How do you feel about important journalism and commentary? Thank you very much for the raid, Lucid. And we got a hype train going as well. So if anyone wants to subscribe and contribute to the hype train, that's an option as well.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Oh my goodness, Gen X Bushy. Gen X Bushy, thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs. Hell yeah, thank you so much. What was the Lucid stream discussing today? What were you guys talking about? There's not a lot going on the news right now, so probably pretty mild stuff, pretty boring stuff, I imagine. Taking advantage of the huge spike in chat to say, free the Kananovich brothers who got abducted by Ukrainian fascists who are facing torture, who may or already have been executed. That is a really scary situation. We can actually get to that more, Zerastash, because that is really scary shit. That's not going to be the first example of leftist, like Ukrainian leftists being persecuted right now, too. Leaders of the Young Communist Union in Ukraine, yeah. That's not going to be the first such incident, especially as more of these far-right groups start getting access to all these NATO weapons. A lot of these folks were victims in that first Maidan incident as well. There's that incident of the trade union hall being burnt down with people alive inside it. I can't talk about something serious while we're doing this, though. Okay, we can get to this after. I can't talk about a serious subject while this is playing. This is ridiculous. How much does it cost to buy these songs? Are they expensive? Oh, it's like seven pounds for this. I'm paying £7 on a Christopher Cross MIDI? No way. Well, I haven't played this one. Do we hear level 4 of this hype train? Don't make me do this much longer, folks. I'm so embarrassed. We got this whole raid, and it's like I'm doing this. I love the song, though. Oh my god. Michael McDonald is the best. The best to ever do it. You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
We simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
Thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs, Red Scary. I appreciate it. And thank you, Comrade Metzia, as well.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
And thanks DRP50 for the gifted sub.
From somewhere back in the long ago.
I can't do it justice. No, they didn't update. They'll update. I think it's a little late. They'll update. Smile, nostalgic tale. Hype train on 80s bops, unseen before historical moments at play here.
We simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
It is party times.
I love the Aretha version, Mossworld, but I love that. I gotta hear Michael McDonald's voice on that. I gotta hear it. Okay? Absolutely have to have it. This is a great one. Great track. I know Sinchild loves this. Ezra, are you still with us? What do you think about this? Man, I need this whole thing. I wonder if there's a version on YouTube of that. Here we go. Try this one again. Can we get to level 5 with Alan Parsons' project?
We simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
I just asked Clueless if she was excited to pick up our 5-year-old from school, and she responded with, "Wonder what hot bullshit she's going to throw at me today." TRRS Kubrick.
Outrun, thank you for the 200 friend coin. Solidarity to you and Clueless. We got the whole song on this one. We lost Ezra. Ezra came to check out the stream, and I was like, alright, you want to see what it is? Alright, we'll show you what the stream is all about. And they were like, no thank you. For every Ezra, we pick up 10 MIDI levers in the suburbs. We got 40 more seconds, folks. What do you think? 40 more seconds. And Ezra will not be taking advantage of the only Enver Hoja emote on this entire platform of Twitch. Thank you, Jim Liminal, for the 69 bits. Or friend coin. Thank you, Jim Liminal. The hype train's over, but you can still subscribe. You still can. Nice guitar solo in this song. Okay. That's just about enough of that. That's just about enough of that. Let me just, like, figure out where we're going next here. I could slow jam all afternoon, frankly. I could do it as well. I actually wouldn't mind gaming either. Kind of in the mood to game. I'm kind of not in the mood to talk about anything seriously. I've been being very serious lately. I've been very serious journalist mode engaged lately. You seemed rather melancholy. I don't want to say I'm melancholy. I'm definitely low energy though. Perhaps it's my lack of. I've only had my regular sized Diet Coke, and not my normal energy drink. I know you said no talking, but maybe you can discuss this next. Why do we park on driveways but drive on parkways? More and more people are asking this. What's the deal with airline food? Right. My goodness. Yeah, we were talking about Outrun. We were talking about doing some kind of like a tabletop thing, community thing, and people seemed very encouraged by this. People seem very encouraged by this idea. The possibility of a TRRS community tabletop RPG. Lodane was mentioning a possible Aliens universe RPG, which I think that would be fun. Have you guys checked out Mothership? No, I have not. Is that a tabletop game? I've always wanted to get into this world, and I've just never had the opportunity to, so it could be really cool to try this. Read D&D, these things take planning, but I will be happy to participate and provide framework for such a large prospective pool of players. Yeah, we don't want to rush into this. We don't want to rush into it. We're not going to rush into it. Careful, I'm going to get banned. But it is something I think we should plan for. We should plan to do this. You know, we can still. I shouldn't game. As much as I would like to just sit here and game for the next hour, we shouldn't do this. Um, there was this video, and I mean, this is like, it's really interesting, I think, for people to try to downplay the idea of what was going on in Ukraine for the 8 years prior to this invasion. When you have the president literally on Ukrainian TV joking about this shit openly. If you see this video is really wild.
Здравствуйте, дядя Игорь, тетя Валя и дядя Саша. Вопреки вашим опасениям сообщаю, что живу я хорошо. Пока живу. Дальше будет еще лучше, потому что уже 3 недели, как я принят в бандеровцы. А как иначе? Иначе у нас в Украине карьеры не сделать. Хотя что я вам рассказываю, вы и так все знаете. Зарплата у меня маленькая.
And first of all, to be clear, yeah, this is comedy. This is like, yeah, he's joking. He's doing a comedy bit about this. But he's also acknowledging, obviously, very real elements of their society. Right? It's hard to deny that these elements have been present there for a while when they're literally just doing jokes about doing stand-up bits about it. The current president of the country is doing stand-up bits about it, years ago.
Иначе у нас в Украине карьеры не сделать. Хотя что я вам рассказываю, вы и так все знаете. Зарплата у меня маленькая, но это не главное. Ведь нам разрешили отбирать деньги и имущество у русских. А раньше можно было и у евреев. Но потом пришел главный бандеровец Коломойский и запретил. Я, например, сейчас учу английский язык, чтобы забыть русский. В этом мне помогают американские наемники, которые у нас тут на каждом шагу. Знаете, я женился во 2-й раз на Вадике. Для нас, европейцев, это нормально. Сегодня наш президент, самый главный, который у нас самый главный президент, Барак Обама, пообещал, что мы скоро вступим в НАТО. Пока, естественно, на правах американского...
No, yeah, I get that, though, that he's making fun of these Russian statements.
Вышлите, пожалуйста, мне книгу Гитлера «Майн кампф». А то у нас разметают. Бывало, утром выхожу на балкон и начинаю делать зарядку. От сердца к солнцу, вот так. Ну, что я вам рассказываю?
Like, I do get that. That he's like, yeah, he's making fun of what Russia says about Ukraine. But like, yeah, like, I do think this is the people are laughing because there is an element of truth. That's what uncomfortable laughing is coming from. This is the problem, yeah. And like, yeah, it's making light of this idea, or this, like, suggesting that this is entirely what Ukraine is like. But it wouldn't be a joke if there wasn't this element of truth to it behind everything that he's saying. Like, I don't think this is some evidence or whatever that Zelensky is a secret Nazi or anything like that. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I do think that, like, it's interesting how common this narrative has been. The fact that it was a subject of like late night humor. And frankly, that's the thing. We can watch Zelensky joking about this in the past, but there's also like clips of politicians that do, like, look at that neo-Nazi mayor that was interviewed on PBS, a Banderite. He's got an image of Bandera on the wall behind him while he's doing this interview with PBS. There's a whole piece about this, like how this town was shocked when this neo-Nazi was elected mayor. NATO was indeed funneling arms into the country at this time. say he's making light of all this stuff, but all this stuff was indeed actually going on. Joking in 2014, like, lol, there's so many Nazis in Ukraine, says Russia. Fast forward to 2021, when he's awarding a Holocaust collaborator posthumously. So you might be asking how I got here. Yeah. You might be asking how I got here. Yeah, and you have Ukrainian politicians on record talking about people in the Donbass saying, like, yeah, we're going to have jobs. They're not going to have jobs. There's a shelling campaign going on while this was happening where, like, kids were hiding in basements because being shelled by the Ukrainian military. This was going on. Like, this exact shit was going on while he was making light of it and joking about it on this TV show. This is interesting too. Like, even progressive American politicians were acknowledging this shit. And now, of course, they're all backing down from admitting this stuff. Ro Khanna in 2018. Ever since the Orange Revolution began under President Bush, the U.S. has been complicit in the rehabilitation and spread of neo-Nazis in Ukraine. Enough is enough. Our government must stand up to the Azov Battalion and other fascist groups. Ro Khanna, May 5th, 2018. And now he's on board with this whole plan of, like, continuing to funnel weapons into the country. That's the kind of amazing thing about it, is that all this stuff was, like, widely acknowledged. There's that NPR piece about NATO expansion. You have all these political commentators talking about how dangerous it is. You've got Ro Khanna and progressive politicians talking about how dangerous it is to be funneling weapons to these people. And then when Putin uses all this as a pretext to launch this invasion, they all go, what? That's all just propaganda. That's all just made up bullshit. Canada Land had a rare win today on Twitter. We can actually take a look at Jesse Brown's thread about this, because I saw that it was decent. And I'm sure everyone's going to react normally to it. Cheering for Ukrainians is easy. Cheering for Ukrainian nationalism is more complicated. Ukrainian nationalism is a movement with fascist roots, a movement that eagerly collaborated with the Nazis to exterminate 1.5 million Ukrainian Jews. In cheering for Ukrainian nationalism, the Canadian media and others laundered the movement's enduring Nazi sympathies. Globe and Mail ignores the blood and soil symbol on this teen's cap. Perhaps unwittingly, Le Devoir just goes for it, glorifying this Azov battalion soldier. And again, props to Jesse Brown for calling attention to this. And I know actually my friend Karen Geyer is going to be going on Canada Land to talk about this. And Karen is great at staying focused on this. Sometimes in the zeal to cheer for Ukrainian resistance, Nazi symbols are shared by accident. That's where I start to wonder, though. Is it by accident? Is it really by accident? I'm not so sure. Like, these are fucking serious people. NATO doesn't know what the fucking Nazi black sun symbol looks like. All these, the countless examples of all these Western media outlets showing, like, the UPA flag and stuff, none of them know what that means. None of them know who Stepan Bandera is. You can't do a cursory Google search of the guy you're talking to. That's where I'm a little skeptical. I don't think this is a coincidence or it's an accident. Sometimes in the zeal to cheer for Ukrainian resistance, Nazi symbols are shared by accident, as NATO did. Sometimes people should really know better. On today's CBC Frontburner, an Israeli reporter demurely describes Azov battalions as Nazism as less than appealing. No ties whatsoever between the creation of Israel and fascism as well. You wouldn't want to explore that. Don't look into that. It gets weirder. Stepan Bandera remains a revered and glorious figure. That's what I mean. Like, Zelensky in that clip is joking about this, suggesting that it's, like, overblown. This is a real thing. This is really real, though. This is real. Stepan Bandera remains a revered and glorious figure in the pantheon of Ukrainian nationalists. But he was a zealous Nazi collaborator who wanted to cleanse Ukraine of Jews and whose lieutenants helped launch a pogrom in which 4,000 Lvov Jews were butchered. Also Poles as well. It wasn't just Jewish people, it was Polish people as well in Galicia. And this is the amazing thing too. Bandera's grandson, Stephen Bandera, is a Canadian journalist who helps cover Ukraine for CTV News. We don't get to choose our grandparents, but Steve denies his granddad's thoroughly documented role in perpetrating the Holocaust, much like Chrystia Freeland does. Much like Chrystia Freeland. Steve Bandera, a journalist and Canadian citizen, has steadfastly maintained for years that his grandfather, and the Ukrainian nationalist movement in general, are innocent of perpetrating war crimes against Jews. It's a viewpoint that some historians see as Holocaust revisionism, correctly. Oh no, he was just an anti-Soviet nationalist, right, Comrade Kenny? Right, Comrade Kenny? He's just a Bandera. That guy was just an anti-Soviet nationalist. That's all. And it's all this stuff about fascism and not carrying out the Holocaust. That's all Russian propaganda. Just like Zelensky was pointing out in that comedy bit. All this stuff is just all this stuff about Banderites and NATO and being a U.S. henchman. That's all Russian propaganda. Like that's what Zelensky was saying in that comedy bit. That's what the Bandera says about his granddad. That's what Chrystia Freeland says about her grandfather, Michael Chomiak. Canada imported no Nazis, particularly Ukrainian ones, because they were committed anti-communist. And that's why we have now in this country, like I've been talking about for a couple years now, that's why we have monuments to SS divisions. Ukrainian SS divisions that helped carry out the Holocaust. We have monuments to them in Canada. Why? This is why. Because we imported all these folks after the war because we hated socialism so much, and so did they. Their SS tattoos were actually noted as positives. Bandera said he was unable to tell from first-hand experience what his grandfather thought about Jews. However, he told the Jewish Telegraphic Agency, in the anti-Soviet activism of my dad, there were a lot of Jewish colleagues and allies, and his father made an effort of reaching out and working together with Jews that were on the same page. And yeah, now he's a producer at CTV covering Ukraine. Ukraine is not, and this is, again, I think this is an important point from Jesse too. I've been trying to make this claim. As much as I've talked about this issue, I've spent time over the last couple of weeks talking about this issue of neo-Nazism in Ukraine. I've tried to center this idea as well, that it's not Nazified. It does not require denazification of its leadership. I split hairs a little bit there. That is an absurd justification for Russia's aggression, but it is possible to confront propaganda without publishing counter-propaganda. And I guess that's my point, is that when you get into political leadership, I think that's a little trickier. But I would say that I don't think there's 44 million people in Ukraine. I don't think that there's like tens of millions of frothing at the mouth Nazis of these people. I don't believe that. No one else should believe that. Again, when you're bombing cities and creating a huge refugee crisis, the people that you're harming in that situation are not Nazis, they're just average people. The leadership is a little bit different. I would maybe push back a little bit about that. Yeah. And it's appealing to ignore, obscure, or excuse the very real and present history of Nazism within Ukrainian nationalism. Yeah, discussed on today's Shortcuts with Karen Geyer. Karen Geyer is a friend of mine. I hope she did a very good job. I'm sure she did a very good job. Loved Karen. Yeah, I would definitely push back on this idea about the leadership. And it does get into, like, again, we talked about the chemical weapons stuff a little bit, which I'm a little leery to weigh in on until there's more facts about it. And this is another case where I've just been like trying to avoid getting into the details of like what is actually going on specifically with the occupation, because you see, or with the invasion, like you saw that there was the image of that hospital that was bombed, and I think it's really, I would definitely advise against people who even who are against NATO correctly, who are against Western influence, who understand the ways that the West have like helped provoke this. all this is true. But then you have situations where like Russia is bombing these targets and people are saying things like, well, they're using human shields and it's a false flag, and just immediately making excuses. Immediately just jumping to the place that like, no, it must be there must be some explanation. But like, yeah, it's a war and bombs are going off and people are dying. That's what happens in a war when a country is bombing another country. And like, that's exactly what, when the IDF bombs Gaza, that's the exact same justification that they use. Oh, they're using human shields. They're using human shields. So that's why we have to bomb residential buildings. We have to bomb hospitals and all these other civilian targets. They're using human shields. So we have no choice. So if you don't think that that's a valid excuse when the IDF bombs these buildings, I don't think you should be leaping to the defense of the Russian military either when these things happen. You know? And I see people doing that, and I understand the inclination, but it's like, I think it's really not really helpful, I think, to immediately jump to these conclusions. You know, yes, there's absolutely an information war that's going on right now. There's been all kinds of false information put out from the Ukrainian side about things that have happened. We should be, you know, we can be careful about what information we propagate, and we can be skeptical about things. That doesn't mean that I think we should just immediately leap to the defense of the Russian military at the first time that there's evidence that they're doing something terrible in this war. What is going on? Any words of advice? Just vibe. Just vibe, Pete. I don't think the parallel holds. Palestinian resistance has no choice but to have weapons in urban areas. Well, I mean, I guess that's part of it, because it's not to back up what you're saying, Gaza is basically entirely an urban area, and also Gaza doesn't have a military. Like Ukraine, even though their military is being outmatched by the Russian military, they do have like tanks and planes and, you know, artillery and soldiers because they've been getting funded from the West. So you're right about that distinction. It's not a direct one-to-one comparison. My point though is that I think I see people just immediately kind of leaping to the defense of the Russian military, and just, this is the reality though. It's like when you're invading a country,
you can count on me,
and you're bombing a country.
Old Rob to talk you through all this.
Rob, I am sorry. I will behave. Please call of the Grandma of Kiev.
Thank you, Moist Owlets, for the 12 entire months of Tier 1. Thanks, Moist Owlets. Carmen Kenny says, any nationalism that's based on who you are not versus who you are not versus who you are leads to war. Because who you are not must be projected to someone else, like Russia. Ditto, Russia using Nazis as well. Reactionary nationalism. Who isn't an actual Nazi obfuscates the cultural acceptance of these people, which is all the Nazis need. They're fascists. They don't need numbers. They just need power to enforce their worldview. And yeah, Kenny, the people that have been involved in this movement have been openly admitting this, right? They've been openly admitting that they count on this exact phenomenon. And they know that they don't have the numbers, but they don't really need them. And that they can use this chaos to increase their hold on power. Like Yasha Levine was pointing this out. Yasha Levine has been a great source of information on all this stuff. Who is not like a pro-NATO, he's not like a pro-NATO guy at all. And Vijay Prashad was pointing this out as well. Like, this war is leading to this nationalist mobilization in Russia as well. And which is very like chauvinistic in its characteristics, which is also bad. It doesn't mean that they're like, it's not the exact same situation, but it's leading to this very kind of reactionary chauvinistic nationalist movement in Russia as well. Pro-Putin, pro-Russia.
Друзья, Спасибо вам огромное за поддержку, которая сейчас так нужна и Донбассу, и нашим вооруженным силам.
Маски сброшены. Мы защищаем интересы нашей страны, нашей великой России. Мы поддерживаем нашего президента, нашего верховного главнокомандующего.
At least the comforting element here is that despite huge presence of Fash in Russia, the largest opposition force is the Communist Party. And that's a good point, yeah. And it hasn't been banned in Russia like it has been in Ukraine. The beautiful European-style liberal democracy that liberals have been telling themselves it is. But this is what I mean, though. It's still leading to this very reactionary, very chauvinistic movement in Russia as well, which is also going to have downstream effects. This is also very destructive. And yeah. Yasha Levine's thread about this is actually really good. As Evgenia Kovda said, Putin's going to cynically go full bore, weaponizing the World War II fight against Nazism narrative. It's the only thing he has, and he's going to squeeze everything out of it, cheapening the memory and sacrifices of the Soviet citizens and our families.
Это город-герой Ленинград. Город, который не покорился и победил. Город, которому не стыдно.
В Великую Отечественную более 800 тысяч ленинградцев отдали свои жизни, но не сдались. Неужели вы думаете, что мы, потомки людей, которые годами умирали от голода, но били фашистов и держали фронт, продадим родину за доллары и айфоны?
Своими принципами мы не поступимся. Мы никогда не променяем своих героев на персонажей Марвел.
Советская армия и блокадники разорвали фашистское кольцо вокруг Ленинграда. Задача наших военных сейчас насмерть затянуть петлю на шее нацизма, прекратить, наконец, 8-летнюю войну и ужас на Донбассе, защитить наших людей, вынужденных бороться за право свободно говорить на родном языке. А наша задача – защитить улицы российских городов от предателей и провокаторов. Работайте, братья, за Россию, за президента! За Россию! За президента! За Россию! За Путина! За Россию!
And that's the alarming thing about this like nationalist movement that's now emerging, that's like being bolstered by this conflict in Russia as well. Is we're not, like as many people have pointed out, we're not talking about the Soviet. We're not talking about a country that's trying to spread socialism, or that's trying to encourage working class solidarity. That's not what this movement is about. And that's why I don't take these claims of denazification seriously, really, when they make these claims. You know, these are not socialists that are trying to spread international cooperation and solidarity and these important values that we all believe in. And yeah, I don't think that it is a new thing. Youth nationalism in Russia isn't something new. It's been there since the early 2000s from what I've been reading. Gangs of patriots would beat up immigrants or wherever it doesn't look right. I don't think that it is new. But because of this conflict now, I think there's more organization. It's like it's uplifting all these very reactionary values. So I don't think we should lose sight of any of this stuff, right? I don't think it's important that we like. It's always been important for me, again, while still focusing on the role of NATO in the West, because that's where we live, right? We don't live in Russia. We can't do shit to change the behavior of the Russian government. We live in the West, so we should be focusing on NATO and what the West, what Canada and the United States has done to encourage this. I think we should always keep that in mind without getting pulled into this like Russia good, Putin good. This is not a conflict where it's like, as much as people are framing it on one side as there's a conflict of good versus evil, the innocent Ukraine, beautiful liberal democracy of Ukraine, plus the evil Putin, or it's people are trying to switch it to the other side. It's not that. It's not that either. That Putin is good and he's upholding these positive values. We should always remain focused on this idea, while still, again, especially if you live in the West, again, focusing, I think, on what the role the West has played in this, which is the West has played a significant role in fanning these flames and pouring gasoline on this fire. But again, just to remind you, though, the idea of like the persecution that was going on, that it led to this entire conflict in the first place, and that Putin has like weaponized in order to fuel this, pretending that it didn't exist isn't helpful either. It is not helpful either to pretend this shit was not going on, as that kind of comedy bit that Zelensky was doing was kind of making fun of it. This shit has indeed been going on. People have been getting persecuted over the last 10 years. People have been dying.
От ви спитали, як так може бути? Так може бути тому, що Донбас взагалі регіон, який, ну...
This is like one of Ukraine's main media sources, Hromadski, discussing Donbass and why all this is going on.
Ну, це не просто депресивний регіон, розумієте? Там настільки великий комплекс таких грона проблем, і головніше, наприклад, тому, що там просто дика кількість абсолютно непотрібних людей. В економіці, повірте, я абсолютно свідомо про це говорю. От якщо брати навіть чисто Донецьку область, там приблизно 4 мільйони населення. Що не менше 1,5 мільйона, там просто зайвих людей. Про що хочу сказати? Нам не треба...
You know what I mean? Let's not pretend this shit was not going on. It's severely overpopulated with people nobody has any use for. Trust me, I know what I'm saying. Right? We don't have an accurate picture of what is happening here if we pretend that this shit, that like this is this one-sided conflict and that Putin's just completely inventing all these reasons for invading. You can say that he's cynically weaponizing these reasons, which is something that I believe, but pretending that this is not going on is not helpful either.
Абсолютно свідомо про це говорю. От якщо брати навіть чисто Донецьку область, там приблизно 4 мільйони населення. Що не менше 1,5 мільйона, там просто зайвих людей. Про що хочу сказати? Нам не треба розуміти Донбас, нам треба розуміти взагалі український національний інтерес. А Донбас треба просто використати як ресурс, який треба... Відповідно, з приводу розуміння Донбасу. Мені здається, що, в мене немає зрозуміння жодного рецепту, що тут можна зробити швидко, але... найголовніше, що треба зробити в даний момент, як це там жорстоко не прозвучить, є певна категорія людей, яких треба просто вбити. От ви спитали, як так може бути?
Like, you know what I mean? Yeah, did you just say 1.5 million people are surplus? There's no one has any use for them whatsoever. This is kind of my point here, you know? Let's not pretend that none of this shit was going on. It doesn't mean we need to say that the invasion is good. It doesn't mean we need to leap to the defense of the Russian military when they carry out crimes as part of this invasion. We shouldn't be doing that. Let's also not pretend, A, that the West hasn't directly provoked this. And let's not pretend, B, that there's not a serious issue at the heart of this in Ukraine with both this like fascist element in their society, which is not everybody. It's not everyone in the entire country. We shouldn't believe that, but it is there. It is definitely there. And let's not pretend there hasn't been this conflict going on and that people haven't been legitimately being persecuted. Like this is I think what this man is expressing is I don't want to say it's a common belief, but like there's a significant element of people in this kind of military establishment and media and political establishment that hold these views about these like Eastern people that live in eastern Ukraine, in these breakaway regions. That was the epicenter of all this. Redundant people. Yeah. Remember during the pandemic when ghouls were going on the U.S. news calling us human capital stock? Yeah, that's a nice way to be described. Can't help but point out that there's certainly a form of ethnic hatred here. He doesn't say it, but it's clear by useless people he means Russian minority of Donbass. Yeah, that's exactly what he's referring to. So this is me, all of this that I've been trying to talk about the last couple of minutes, or the last hour or so, is me trying to be nuanced. We don't have a lot of nuance in our discussions of this. We have people that are just like 100% in on arming, just sending billions of dollars of weapons to Ukraine to carry out this insurgency and turning it into some kind of like quagmire that destroys Russia. You have I think a small minority of people. People suggest that this is this widespread thing on the left that are just fully like pro-Putin. I don't think it is widespread at all. But it is. There are people that are taking this stance though. And I don't think we should do that either. But what we should not do, I keep repeating this. What we should not do is ignore the role that the West has played in provoking this whole thing and ignoring the fact that like this shit has been going on. You know, you don't have a full view of what is going on in this conflict if you don't just recognize these basic realities. We also have to take into account, I think, as we do with all these conflicts, we have to take into account what the global South says about this stuff. That is really important as well. We shouldn't like, I think, leap to the defense of Putin and the Russian military, but we should still pretend. We should still be paying attention to what people in the global South are saying about this. And as Carl was pointing out on the stream yesterday, in terms of the viewpoint that we have on Western media, that's actually a very small percentage of like what people are saying about this around the world. And we should definitely pay close attention to what people in the global South are saying about this. And not just immediately kind of hand wave that away either. The disciplined thing to do would be for leftists to attack the warmongering media and political elite in this country, rather than teens with hammer and sickle avatars on Twitter. Yeah, could not agree more. Could not agree more. Like that's the point that I've been trying to make over the last couple of weeks. It's like if you actually care about saving lives in Ukraine, they don't need Stinger missiles and weapons and funding a fucking insurgency, a NATO-backed right-wing insurgency. That's not going to help people in Ukraine. What's going to help is coming to some kind of fucking diplomatic solution that ends the occupation, that ends this invasion as soon as possible. Nuanced, but I lean heavily away from the Nazis. Absolutely. And if you've been paying, as I know you have, Sinchal, if you've been paying attention to my content, you know that's been a main thing that I've been saying. I believe arming Nazis is not a good thing to do. It's not good that our governments are doing this. Also constantly reiterate the role NATO and the West can play in ending this conflict right now. Yeah, and we keep coming to that inescapable conclusion that they don't seem interested in ending the conflict. This is the problem. We seem interested in prolonging the conflict. Which, like Spencer Ackerman in that interview I was playing pointed out, is diametrically opposed with this idea of helping Ukraine or saving Ukraine or helping Ukrainians. Prolonging the conflict is only going to hurt people that live there. This is also good because if you really want to get a nuanced understanding of this, I think it's important to watch this clip as well.
Any level of news, even social media, you're seeing everything that's going on right now in the Ukraine.
Break
it down in layman's terms for people who don't understand what's going on and how can this directly affect the people of the United States.
So Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically that's wrong.
If you're watching any level of news, even...
Thank you, Kamala. So if you didn't understand the context, I think that gives you a bit more of a view. It gives you a bit more of an understanding. In case you weren't familiar with the historical context. It all makes sense now. Yeah. The gay TikTok guy outflanking the VP. Jesus. Let's see what else I have to look at here. There's also this too. Also very important.
Tommy, tell us how you put the skits together.
We don't do skits, Mom. Skits are when the football players dress up as the cheerleaders and think it's wit. Sketches are when some of the best minds in comedy come together and put on a national television show that's watched and talked about by millions of people.
Don't you talk to your mother like that.
I'm trying to tell you, you're standing in the middle of the Paris Opera House of American television.
Well, that's swell, Tom, but your little brother is standing in the middle of Afghanistan.
So that's also something we should keep in mind. I think. Let's not lose sight of that as well. Okay? Let's not lose sight of that, please. Her brother's T-posting in Afghanistan, Tom. Take care, Rylan. But this is like, I want to look at this tweet from friend of the show, Camilla, from Cowsachin News. This is what I talk about listening to the Global South as well. I think it's important to, as you all know, folks, when we look at that map, you know the map, when you see the countries that support and oppose this, and it's the same fucking map every time, and it's all the Western countries and Western Europe and Australia and the rest of the Global South. I'll tell you what that map looks like right now. And I am always leery about being on the American and Canadian and Western Europe side of that map. I'll tell you that much. And when it comes to all of these foreign policy issues, I think it's really, really important to see what the global South is saying about this, and ensuring that like we're not just hand waving away their perspective as well. Boric absolutely fucked up his position. It seems to be a loser, which is unfortunate. It was. I wanted to get excited about Boric, but he just seems like he sucks. Turns out a lot of people live in South America, yeah, and they're quite leery, to say the least, of the West's role. It's not like the West has ever armed and funded right-wing extremists in Central and South America. They know all about this strategy of provoking civil wars intentionally to destabilize official enemy states. It turns out they're intimately acquainted with Yankee imperialism. Yeah, they know all about this strategy. Like if the people in El Salvador are familiar with about what happens when the United States and its allies get in there and start arming and funding these right-wing goons. Or Nicaragua. This has happened all over the world. So yeah, it's not surprising that they're like extremely skeptical of the Western role in this and are not getting on board with this like, let's look to the West to find a solution to this crisis. Like this is what I mean. It's like when, and I brought this up in the conversation with Spencer as well. When you talk about like the West and America engaging in this kind of like economic warfare in response to this, like you can condemn the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and say there should be some consequence if they're committing crimes, which I don't think it's I don't think it's disputable that crimes are being committed as part of this invasion. But why the fuck is it the role of the United States to enforce these rules? What credit goes back to that question of credibility? Why does America have this ability to wage economic warfare on Russia while they and their allies are just completely able to break all these rules and engage in all this shit, horrible, violent, murderous behavior with total impunity? Even if you take the idea that sanctions even work to fix this problem, which it obviously will not. I heard assassination and regime change were not the official policy of the U.S., though. Yeah, that's of course. Yeah, our friends in the CIA have assured us that because it's illegal, they don't do this kind of stuff anymore. But yeah, people in Central and South America are well acquainted with this exact strategy. Why? I'll tell you why. Because your little brother is standing in the middle of Afghanistan. So, I mean, as I'll keep pointing out, I think if you care about this invasion stopping, if you think this invasion should stop right away, if you care about protecting people in Ukraine, you should be encouraging diplomacy. You should be encouraging dialogue rather than continuing the exact same activity that's led to this happening in the first place by pouring gasoline on this fire, as everyone in the West seems intent to do right now. feel like I had more stuff to get into, but it's getting kind of late. Getting kind of late, and I'm going to have to go pick up my son from kindergarten soon. One small problem, though. No deal, Putin. That's right. No deal, Vlad. We're going to fight Russia to the last Ukrainian, as Karl Zha was saying yesterday. Yeah, so I gotta go in 23 minutes. Is Quebec lifting the mask mandate for schools? I actually haven't heard. It's actually a good question. Seems Quebec, like everywhere else, is just interested in just completely giving up on any pretending this pandemic is still going on. Yeah, it seems to be in the process. Common areas, yes to masks, but it's going to become a question of personal preference. Scotland wants to make people with pre-existing health conditions wear badges to identify them as immunocompromised. No way that's going to be problematic in any way. That's great. Like I said, I'm going to continue wearing a mask when I go in public. I just think it's a good best practice. Overall, I plan to continue doing that. One-way masking doesn't work. It only works when we all do it. Yeah, that's kind of the whole point. Yeah. Take care, Lodane. Enjoy but have a good doctor's appointment. I do have a soft spot for these more ramshackle, laid-back streams. We covered some important things. We covered a few important subjects. We had some important dialogue and discourse, I think. Wasn't so laid back. It's a little laid back now. Pretty low energy again. Well, folks. Yeah, I got about 20 minutes to go. What's that? Just in case you didn't see, though. Ooh. Ramshackle wasn't the word I was looking for. It meant thrown together. Okay, that actually makes more sense. So, should I just, I will be back tomorrow. I don't know. Probably, it looks like unlikely for Abby Martin. Oh, shit. Where am I? Probably unlikely that we'll get Abby this week. I'm going to see, but I'm going to try and book that for hopefully next week. Abby Martin. That was the whole thing that I wanted to watch too. Was we do not have time now. The whole question of whether Russia is imperialist or not. Oh yeah, that was okay. That does lead to something when I was talking about. I had a thought and then I lost it. But when you talk about America waging this economic warfare right now, this question of like whether Russia's imperialist or not, it seems to be kind of an interesting debate subject. And when you say like, I don't know if Russia is imperialist, I don't know if this is an example of imperialism, that's not a defense. That's not a defense of Russia. The only point when you talk about this is that like, yeah, there's a whole hour and a half long video with Brian Becker and Benjamin Norton on this. The whole point of bringing that up is just to say that like invading another country is not necessarily imperial. It's not imperialist when just one country invades another country. But I think you see who wields the imperialist power in this global situation right now when you see America waging this kind of economic warfare. Like only one side in this conflict has the ability to do that. Waging this kind of economic warfare, which is one part of what imperialism is, right? So I would like, maybe that's something we can watch tomorrow. There's this like hour and a half long clip of Benjamin Norton and Brian Becker talking about this subject. Again, I think it's an interesting thing to debate about. It doesn't mean that the invasion is good. That's not the point in pushing back on that idea. But it's more trying to develop a nuanced idea of like what actually is. It's got a specific definition, and figuring out the actual definition for what this is. Beyond just like big country invading small country, there's a lot more to it than that. But let's maybe save that for tomorrow. Not debate, but discuss. Imperialism is ultimately an economic and social relationship between countries, not an aesthetic. Yeah. There's a whole video on this. I think we can watch this tomorrow, maybe. So, folks. I gotta go in 16 minutes. I'm 9 subs away from hitting the sub goal. I did the whole dance thing. I was dancing earlier. I don't think I'm going to do that again. I don't think I'm going to do the dancing thing again. What do we say, though, about hitting that sub goal? Ooh, Sedusu. Continuing the gift sub you got from Calm Like a Tom. Thank you so much, Sedusu. No dancing stream. I literally did I was dancing a lot earlier. I was dancing and having a great time. I was dancing and having a wonderful time before. I think I don't have any more energy for that. So for some reason, I'm going to up that manually. Okay, so that's 27. Right? And there's something else that I wanted to look at, actually.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you very much, Cape Codmunist, for gifting a sub as well. Very kind of you. Thank you very much. I was actually trying to find the last time I talked on the stream, like months ago, about Canada arming neo-Nazis in Ukraine. I guess this is probably too late to get into that. I was having some fun looking at old highlights. It's fun for me to go back and over the last year and a bit of the stream and reminisce a little bit. Some of the good times. Some of the good times we've had on the stream. Here, this is for you. I'm not going to do a little dance. I'm not going to do the little dance, but I'll put on a funny, something very funny that I think you'll enjoy. I think. Can I find it? Damn it. What a low energy stream. Very low energy. What do we think about this? It's not the Studio 60 thing. I'm gonna try and find the Discord. Oh my, what is this now? What is this? Rob, you double your slubs if you streamed with fewer sleeves. Streamed with fewer sleeves. Rob, you double your slubs if you streamed with fewer sleeves. Streamed with fewer sleeves. Rob, you double your slubs if you streamed with fewer sleeves. Streamed with fewer sleeves. Rob, you double your slubs if you streamed with fewer sleeves. Streamed with fewer sleeves. Look at the chat making fun of me. Look at everyone in the chat mocking me. Mocking me. This is what I get. I come here with the guilt trip, though. This is where I turn on the real parent stuff. This is so like Inception. TFW when you double your slubs if you sleeve with fewer sleeves. God damn it. You know, I try to come on here to Twitch to like provide a positive community for people. You know, I'm trying to like create a space for people that maybe don't feel as comfortable elsewhere, that feel like their views aren't representative, that feels like, you know, they don't have a community that they can be a part of. I'm trying to take time out of my day to provide that for people. And that, you know, that's all I'm trying to do. That's all I'm trying to do. And this is how I get treated. Yeah. This is how I get treated by the people in this community. Very unfortunate. What was that clip, Outrun? Were we sharing? Outrun put a clip in the chat. What is that? Let me see if I can find it. Oh, Jesus. What did Ben Garrison do with Snow White's mommy milkers? What did Ben Garrison do with Snow White's mommy milkers? What did Ben Garrison do with Snow White's mommy milkers? I see. Okay. Well, I gotta go in 8 minutes, folks. Listen. I gotta go in 8 minutes. I'm still a couple subs shy of the goal. Alright? So here's what I'm gonna do for you. I'm just gonna stare at the camera. I'm gonna stare at the camera awkwardly. And if you feel uncomfortable and you want it to stop, you know what you have to do. Okay? This is all I have left. This is all I have the energy for right now. Okay? Alright, so here we go.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this. You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this. You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Thank you, Anonymous Gifter. Thank you, Progressive Canuck, as well. And thank you very, very much to MK
We
Reds.
simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
Football. TRRS Mushrab BBCRCCVFRFFFCBCRR.
Thank you, Tiniest Boop. Thank you, Tiniest Boop, as well, for the 200 bits. Thank you very much, friends. I appreciate it. We did it, fam. Thanks, everybody. Our reward is that I leave. That's right. I'll be back tomorrow, alright? I'll be back tomorrow. I'm gonna get one of my energy drinks. I'm gonna get an energy drink tomorrow so I'm not so low energy. Okay? Join the Discord server. I actually did, so Kijiji Genie, I did actually find the Rain guy on Twitter, but he's leaving the company. He's leaving the company, although he did give me a contact of someone else. He did give me the contact of someone else at the company, so I am going to get in touch and see if I can get another big shipment product. I've been putting this off for a few days, I'm not going to lie.